Welcome to our tutorial video about cell structure and function for 7th grade science. The first thing that we need to know is what an organelle is. So in class we've been talking about cells and the structures that are found within them. But if you go back and you think about a person and you think about a heart and the function of the heart, the job of the heart, and that is to pump blood all around your body. Pump blood to your arms, your body, your legs, your brain, and make sure your body gets the oxygen it needs. Well, that heart is an organ, and the heart performs a specific job. Within your cells, if you were to zoom in and look at a cell, you have different organelles, similar to organs, but smaller. So we call them organelle, and that means tiny organ. So these organelles perform functions or jobs for the cell. For example, the nucleus controls the cellular activities. Some of the things that you're going to need to know are how to distinguish between a plant versus an animal cell, and the organelles and the functions that are found within these cells. So one of the first things that makes a plant cell different than an animal cell is that a plant cell has a rigid structure around the outside of the cell. And this structure gives the cell support, and it helps the cell to stand tall. It also forms as a means of protection for the plant cell. And this is called a cell wall. So animal cells do not have a cell wall. Plant cells do have a cell wall. So what happens is the cell wall works with another organelle that is found within the cell, and this organelle is called a vacuole. And the vacuole's job is to store water, food, and waste. And so the cell, the plant, it sucks up as much water as it needs, and it stores it in something called a vacuole. And this vacuole, what it does is it pushes on the cell wall, pushes out against it, and it helps that cell be stiff and rigid, and it helps that plant stand up straight. So plants have a large vacuole. Something else that plants have that's different than an animal is that they have something called a chloroplast. Chloroplasts look like ovals with little stacked pennies inside of them. And the whole purpose of this chloroplast is to make sugar or food. So these little dudes do photosynthesis. They make sugar for the plant, so that means sugar is made by the cell, so it is not a cell, right? Not made of cells. So again, this is called a chloroplast, and it makes food for the cell. So that's your big thing that plant cells have. So if I'm going to look now at an animal cell, animal cells are usually depicted as like an oval or not something with a lot of structure or shape around the outside, because the cell membrane doesn't have that rigid structure that the cell wall does. Now, the cell membrane goes around all cells. It's kind of like your skin, right? So if it's around animal, it's also going to go around the plant, and it goes inside the cell wall. So your skin on your body, it protects you from like viruses and bacteria. That's why whenever we cut ourselves, we need to wash our hands, right? Or wash the cut real good so we make sure nothing bad gets in. Well, the cell membrane controls what goes in and out of the cell. It's the gatekeeper. So if you were a castle, the cell is the castle, it would be where the drawbridge is, and they would have gatekeepers that would decide if they're going to lower that drawbridge or not. Some things that your cell needs are oxygen, food, water. And oxygen and water are pretty small, and they can go in and out of the cell membrane no problem. But things like sugar are too big. So the cell membrane helps regulate or control what goes in and out of your cell. Okay, so all cells have a cell membrane. The next important, very important organelle is the nucleus. So in 6th grade we talked about eukaryote versus prokaryote. Remember, you do have nucleuses. So the nucleus is the control center of the cell. It's like the principal's office or the President of the United States. It controls, it regulates all the activities in the cell. So animals have it as well as plants, because we are all plants and animals are all eukaryotic, meaning they have a cell, or they have a nucleus in their cell. Inside the nucleus, you will find structures that are the blueprint for you, and the structure is called DNA. Now, we have 23 pairs of these structures, the DNA structure, as human beings. Other organisms are going to have different numbers of these long molecules. So we have 23 strands of this DNA molecule, and it is the blueprint for you. It codes for making proteins in our cells, and that's therefore codes for eventually what your hair color looks like, what your hair texture is, what your eyes look like, the shape of your nose, the shape of your ears. So DNA is what makes us who we are, and that's found inside the nucleus. Around the nucleus, we have a structure called the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER. I will tell you right now, I'm not going to test you on this silly thing. It just looks like these like little loop-de-loos around the nucleus, and it's found in both. So the big thing about the endoplasmic reticulum is that it serves as kind of a highway system, and it makes fats. And you have two different types. So if you're pre-AP, we were talking about the two types of ER. It's found in both plant and animal. And you have smooth and rough. So the smooth just looks like that. It's fine. It doesn't have anything on it. And then the rough ER has ribosomes, little dots found on it. So the ER makes lipids or fats, and it's like a little highway system inside the cell. And then you have these little dots called ribosomes. You don't need to know what a ribosome is for your test, but ribosomes are found all throughout the cell because they have this important job. They take the DNA, makes like a little copy, and it sends it to the ribosome, and the ribosome uses it, it's just like a partial copy, to make different proteins, different molecules to help build cells. So there you have a lot of ribosomes, and they have this really important job, but you don't need to know the ribosomes for your cell. It just helps you to tell if it's rough or smooth ER, rough or smooth. Another organelle inside the cell that both of them have, which is one of my favorites, let's see, is the mitochondria. So fun to say. It looks like a little bean with like a lightning bolt or a squiggly. And if you think lightning bolt, it's going to help you remember that it produces energy for the cell. So what happens is food is brought here, and then the mitochondria, or the powerhouse of the cell, break it down. Break it down for the cell to use. So if you think it looks like a hot dog or a kidney bean with a squiggly on it, or a lightning bolt in the middle, they're in both plant and animal. That's my favorite. Powerhouse of the cell. Breaks down food for energy. Think lightning bolt, think energy, and it's in both plants and animals. Okay, so you'll notice that the plant has a big vacuole. Well, animals, they have small vacuoles. And one vacuole might hold water, one vacuole might carry food, one might carry waste products. They're small and they're scattered throughout the cell. So another type of vessel or bubble inside the cell is the lysosome. Lysosomes are mainly found in animals. So for our purposes, we're going to do animals only. And this is a pre-AP only organelle. So lysosomes are just another little bubble, and they're the digestive system, or the trash men of the cell. They take waste and they get rid of it. They digest it and they take it outside of the cell. So again, the yellow one is a lysosome, which is a digestive organ, and then the small blue ones, just like this one over here, but smaller, are a vacuole, holding water, food, or waste. Okay. One more, I think, that I'm missing that's in both of them is called a Golgi body. Golgi bodies, there's one inside the cell that looks like a little C layered on top of each other with some dots next to it. And what this organelle functions to do is that it's like the UPS in the cell. It packages and ships proteins throughout. So, with that, you can see the similarities and the differences between a plant and an animal cell.